when they talk about the independent grind versus the major label grind, they love to talk about the people that are huge success stories that have been signed, but most people who sign to labels do not make it out.
DIY.
Brent Faiyaz, very talented singer that many of you should know the name. He did an interview on the Interval Presents platform, how the labels never talk about artists that sign to labels and never become successful.
Like, they don't talk about all the people that signed to major labels who never got successful.
Can't even get their record out.
They don't speak about it. They speak when they talk about the independent grind versus the major label grind, they love to talk about the people that are huge success stories that have been signed, but most people who sign to labels do not make it out. That's just facts.
Yeah,
most of the motherfuckers to them labels signed, the shit don't work.
I was in high school. There was a kid around my age in my sophomore year that got signed. Sophomore year passed, junior year passed, senior year passed. And I remember he disappeared for a little bit. A few months after graduation, I saw him walking the streets homeless. And I wondered what happened to him because he was a very talented producer and apparently artist as well. I'm not going to put that solely on any label entity. I'm not going to put that on the whole industry as a whole. But I do know that, as Brent Faiyaz is talking about from experience, that there are many stories, and some of you may have heard stories, or maybe have friends, or maybe you were part of that ecosystem and had people who got signed. It was the greatest day of their life, they thought, just to find out they were going to get shelved for whatever X amount of reasons that is. Not only is that intriguing to me from what Brent Faiyaz says, but the second part.
When they talk about the independent grind versus the major label grind, they love to talk about the people that are huge success stories that have been signed, but most people who sign to labels do not make it out.
I feel so dumb for never actually thinking about this. Isn't it wild whenever you hear people that criticize independent artists or what independent artists can't do, they compare them to only the best signed artists, the best case scenarios, the Drakes, Little Babies, whoever's the hottest name of the time. You always say, well, that's a good look, but it'd probably be a better look if you was on this person's level. Why do you always only get the comparisons to the best case scenario? When in reality, there are independent artists, and not just the Tech Nines, who obviously represent an elite level of independence, that are not only doing well for themselves, making minimum wage or making a decent living, but they're doing better than the person who has actually signed a deal that you haven't heard of or heard from for years. Don't that seem like a weird comparison, to compare the best that you have in your industry versus whatever this person's level's at of independence? I look at that, zoom out, and feel like that to me shows weakness on anybody who has to draw those comparisons, whether it is a spectator, whether it's somebody that is in this ecosystem. I look at that and say, what are you so afraid of? If that is the obvious route and everybody that goes through this route, or the majority of people that go through this route, succeed, what do you have to be concerned about? It seems like the more hypnotized artists, independent artists, fans, general listeners, general onlookers are hypnotized by the fame of those popular artists, the more they're able to make money for longer periods of time. The more generations that are obsessed with celebrity, hypnotized by it, the more likelihood that you'll be able to make money off of their kids and their kids' kids. So it seems like that would actually be a great strategy to discourage people from going independent, is to talk about all the bad shit that's going on being independent. There's a website that somebody told me to check out to get like ideas for videos that I do for this reaction series. And I started reading through these headlines and I was like, somebody from a major label wrote these headlines. I saw one that said that over 30 million people on Spotify haven't got one play on their music. And I'm like, something about that number seems ridiculous. So you mean to tell me that those artists didn't even play their own song one time? 30 million? It's got to be a reason for that. But who does that benefit? It benefits people who want you to pursue their industry, who want you to be in a lure of their industry, who want you to feel like this is the only way towards success. They don't want you DIYing. They don't want you independent. What benefit is that? What benefit is that to them? How do they make more money if you make more money off of your own art? The biggest message here, I think a lot of people do think when you get that opportunity, you could level up in the room and you could possibly get more opportunities. Do you know how many people that I've saw do this and never be invited back to the room because they were overstepping boundaries or outshining the master? more than I could name, which seems like a very forward-thinking way of doing business. People who have egos, self-esteem issues, inflated visions of themselves don't want you doing that. They want you falling in place. Everybody's not like that, but unfortunately, a lot are. My thing is this: create your own opportunities. That's what I stand on. I feel like that's the thing that no matter who gives you a cosign or not, that's money you can bank on. Because even if you lose it, you get the opportunity to play it again. Can't nobody blackball you away from getting into your own studio. Can't nobody blackball you from trying a new idea in your own space, in your own ecosystem. That's why I push this DIY so heavy. Not to discourage anybody. If you want to go to that industry, please go, but stay educated on it. Watch when the people who have been signed talk like this, because they're trying to tell you things that they can tell you without them fucking off their opportunities in the process. But they're telling us something. It may be coded, but now I get why it's coded. Because if you say it for what it is, it's going to leave you no other opportunities to be in these rooms anymore. You won't be invited to these rooms. There's a lot of politics in the music business I've seen with my past jobs and internships. I left them all, just got a day job and my own money incomes because of that. It's nothing more amazing knowing that you invested the hours, going to Guitar Center, going to whatever music place you got, or buying something offline, cracking open that box, laying out your keyboard on your desk, sitting with your art and saying, what do I want to make today? Making that thing, deciding how you want to represent that thing, how you want to distribute that thing, then distributing that thing, exporting that thing, putting it out into the world and promoting that thing, and knowing that all the wins and all the losses fall on you. It can be terrifying. It can be overwhelming. It can be discouraging, but it's an amazing playground to play around in. Any of these situations in which I've worked with anybody who was of influence in these spaces wasn't off of my ability to network with them initially. It was because of the work that I did on my own. And so many of us are doing so much work right now on our own or in our teams or in our spaces. And although we're working so hard for it, some of us got our one foot in the independence and one foot in, well, if somebody comes to me with something, maybe I may have to change my plans. Man, if I could hope for anything for anybody, it's for you to step confidently forward in everything that you do, even when you're absolutely terrified about what's to come next. Even when you're clueless about what's coming next, to step confidently and know that you're walking in the place you're supposed to be walking into, that you're making what you're supposed to be making, what you were meant to make. That's all I ever want from anybody. For you to look back at your projects and say, damn, that's what I wanted to do. DIY. DIYers, if you enjoyed this content, make sure that you hit the like button and maybe even consider subscribing. Come on, man. Stop being greedy. Peace.